Hello from Hollywood. I'm Martin Grove, welcoming you to our Screendollars podcast, Box Office Autopsy. In today's conversation, we'll look at the marketplace and analyze how things are going and where they're going. Joining me on the line now is Screendollars box office guru Dick Walsh. Between Dick's career in exhibition, including as film chairman of AMC Entertainment, and my own days talking about movies on CNN, Entertainment Tonight, and as a Hollywood Reporter columnist, we've logged nearly 100 years in Hollywood. That doesn't mean we're always right, but we've definitely got a few opinions to share. Well, Dick, it was another overperforming weekend. Candyman, moviegoers obviously had a sweet tooth. $22.4 million. What do you think?
Well, this is the third consecutive weekend that the industry has actually overperformed at the top, and we're actually finishing the summer on somewhat of a high note.
Well, indeed we are, and I must say, when I refer to overperforming, some of the exhibitors were thinking $17 to $19 million. Some of our Hollywood handicappers were saying mid-teens, no better than that. And here we are with $22.4 million. You know, the picture only cost $25 million to make, so it sounds to me like this picture could be profitable just from the domestic theatrical.
Well, give Jordan Peele and his team a lot of credit because the original only grossed in total $26 million in 1992. So regardless of inflation, it's off to a heck of a start.
Well, look, Jordan Peele, the producer and the co-writer of the film, is obviously a very important contributor to its success. But let's not take anything away from the director, and she is Nia DaCosta. And a very interesting story here because, you know, you're only as good as your last film, and now Candyman now is her last film. Well, her next film is a $180 million production for Disney and Marvel called The Marvels, which will star Brie Larson once again as Captain Marvel. We have a soundbite right now from Nia DaCosta talking about making Candyman. Let's take a listen.
Candyman was just like a real sort of urban legend when I was growing up. It wasn't necessarily just attached to the movie. It felt very present. I went to school right next to the projects. I lived across the street from the projects. And so for us, Candyman was just hanging out over, across the street from us. And so I think the first time I saw it was in elementary school. But this was after I'd already kind of lived with the idea of there being some demon ghost man killing people in the project. So I think my first time seeing the movie was like terrifying, as it is for most people, but I'd already kind of had this lore in my head, so it was kind of like connecting the dots. I was like, oh, that's Candyman, I see, I get it.
And that was Nia DaCosta looking back at making Candyman. Now, this new movie, The Marvels, is obviously putting her on the scene now as a major director in Hollywood, especially with a $180 million budget. They don't entrust that to just anybody.
No, they sure don't. And credit to, again, the team that has assembled out of resurrecting some of these older horror films and really putting new life into them.
Well, indeed, and also what they did here was to, in effect, create the first black hero, and villain really, hero, a horror film. As Jordan Peele explained, in fact, we used the soundbite of him in our last episode of this podcast, which, by the way, is called Box Office Autopsy. we used Jordan Peele talking about that, how important he felt it was to have a black villain, superhero villain. And the African American movie-going audience really responded, and that was a major demo for this to make this movie a success.
Yeah, absolutely, and they tapped in. It's last week I was telling you it was going to be the seventh horror picture since July 2nd. Well, lucky seven, because they came through with a gross that who knows how well this is going to hold in the next couple of weeks.
Well, you never know where anything is going to go, but it certainly got off to a good start. By the way, one of the actresses in this movie, Candyman, is going to be working with Nia DaCosta on the Marvels. That's Teyonah Parris. And we have her talking right now about how much fun she had working on Candyman with Nia. Let's take a listen.
I absolutely adore Nia, our director. She's so smart. To be able to work with a black woman, a young black woman who knows so much what she wants and has beautiful control over the set and over the way she communicates to the actors and what it is she's wanting, and being able to get her visual ideas out to the crew and the people she needs to get that to, but also be able to talk character and the things that are important to us as actors has been really cool.
That was Teyonah Parris talking about making Candyman with Nia DaCosta. And of course, she too will grow in stature as a Hollywood name, being in a huge movie like The Marvels, which, by the way, will be the 31st in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, moving forward on the chart from this number one opening for Candyman, we now have nothing but holdovers because, as you remarked before, Candyman was the only new film opening this weekend. But we have a strong holdover in second place, and that is from Disney 20th, Free Guy. And that's number two with 13.6 million. And I just want to say before I ask you what you think, that it's only off 27% here in the third weekend.
Well, this hold is remarkable in comparison to what has happened to other films this year who have opened disappointingly, dropped rather quickly, and then gone. Free Guy dropping only 27% in its third week, still doing north of $10 million. This has been a success for exhibition. When they got the picture, it's not been streamed. The only way you can see it is in a movie theater, and that's where people are showing up to see it.
Well, I think you have touched on the key point here, Dick, and that is it's not streaming. It's not on Disney Plus, as it easily could have been, and as a result, the only way you can see Free Guy is in a cinema, which is, of course, the way people should be seeing it. It's done now just over $79 million domestically, but it's also, by the way, performing very well internationally. It opened in China to $23.9 million, which was actually better than A Quiet Place Part 2 had done earlier in this summer when it opened to $15 million in China. About 20% of China's theaters are still closed, so in effect 80% are open, which is good. So you've got about $100 million from international business, plus the $79 million domestic, almost $180 million globally for Free Guy.
And I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that Free Guy will go over $100 million domestically in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that is a number that I don't think you could have got 10% of the population to bet on just 3 weeks ago.
Yes, and again, the benefit of not streaming, not having to compete with yourself in effect. Now, the third picture on the chart this weekend is Paw Patrol. And Paw Patrol from Paramount is streaming as we speak on Paramount Plus, but it's number 3 at the box office with 6.6 million. It's off 50% in weekend 2. How does that strike you?
Well, that's actually a fairly good hold from the opening weekend. We've seen a lot of 70, 65, 60% drops. So dropping only 50% is actually a good hold. And the fact that Regal Theaters are not playing the picture is a further indication that the picture might even have been doing better had Regal been playing the picture.
Yes, it certainly seems to me that that would have just broadened the potential audience for it. I mean, this was an audience of basically parents bringing little kids to the movie theater. And you know, if you read the headlines in the media these days, what they're worrying about is, well, parents definitely aren't going to go to the theaters. They're never going to take their young kids who haven't and can't be vaccinated. But they certainly did. So once again, I think the media got it wrong. But they will continue to do that, and we'll continue to point that out, I think, when we spot it. But, you know, there is, of course, always on the horizon for Hollywood another picture, which is great because it means we'll be back again a week from now to talk about whatever that other picture is. And in this case, it's the picture with the almost unpronounceable name, but it is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and it is from Disney Marvel. It is, by the way, the 25th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And there's a lot of buzz about this picture being a potentially big one. It'll be in about 4,200 theaters, and it opens September 3rd, the start of the Labor Day weekend. What do you think?
Well, that's cause for concern in that the Labor Day weekend, excuse me, is one of the lowest grossing weekends of the year, and traditionally the studios are somewhat risk averse to opening a picture over this weekend. In fact, compared to 2019, this was the Labor Day weekend we are in right now. We are comparing this weekend to that year's Labor Day weekend.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dick.
Not one picture opened wide over the Labor Day weekend in 2019. The studios distrusted the date so much.
Well, I just wanted to add that one of the nice things about Labor Day weekend is that for many people it is the last gasp of summer, and they would like to be at the beach, they'd like to be outside at picnics and barbecues, etc., but it's very weather driven. And it will depend this Labor Day weekend on how the weather goes in whatever part of the country you're in. But in particular, along the East Coast and in the Midwest, if there's lots of rain, which there could be if the Hurricane Ida gets on track for any of those areas, I don't know, hopefully not, but the rain could spread, and if it does, people will go to the movies. But talking about Shang-Chi, we do have Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, who at the premiere of Shang-Chi was asked about the movie. Let's take a listen.
We are finally here. We are here, yes, for the premiere of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, a movie that is, without exaggeration, 20 years in the making. 20 years in the making. From my earliest days at Marvel, there were lists of, wouldn't it be fun to make a movie about this? And there's still some things that have not been made yet on that list, but I'm so happy that we're finally debuting Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings here. Again, in Hollywood, with the full Hollywood Boulevard closed, like a big giant premiere should be, and the coolest red carpet, Shang-Chi colors, and finally being able to show the movie to people. This one is special. We were shooting it just before the pandemic, shut down, brought back again. And any movie feels like an achievement. This in particular feels like one. And excited to introduce a brand new Marvel hero to the world. The first time we've had a true origin story in quite a while in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And very anxious for people to meet Shang-Chi and to see where he goes into the pantheon of the MCU.
Kevin Feige talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings opening in theaters for Labor Day weekend. So, look, it sounds to me, Dick, like there is still lots of hope for the movie business.
Oh yeah, this picture could actually do quite well. As miserable as the weekend can be, the advanced ticket sales, particularly on the East and West Coast, look to be exceedingly strong for this picture, and it could really carry the day for Disney as well as the franchise that they are trying to launch. Here's an ironic fact. 1 year ago, 2020, on September 3rd, Tenet opened. And you remember that Tenet was going to jumpstart the industry.
I do remember that. But that isn't exactly what happened, is it?
Not at all. It only went on to do $11 million over the weekend and certainly struggled. Now, to say that the industry, rolling back the industry 1 year ago, we all feel we're much healthier, obviously from the Delta variant with the COVID and also having the vaccination out there. We are in a much better shape, and it'll be an interesting comparison to see what this Labor Day weekend does in 2021 versus the Tenet-driven Labor Day weekend of 2020.
And we will be here next week to tell you out there all about it. So thanks for listening. Dick, thank you for joining me. And that's it for today's Box Office Autopsy.
Time now for our film flashback look at what was happening in Hollywood right around now, way back then. Let's set today's time travel dial for August 25th, 1930. Of the 6 actors who've brought Ian Fleming's James Bond to life on screen since 1962, it's Sean Connery who's been applauded most for being the best Bond. Connery, who was born August 25th, 1930, was just 31 when producers Albert Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were trying in 1961 to find a studio to greenlight a film based on any one of Fleming's novels. Saltzman had a 6-month option from Fleming with only 30 days left. Broccoli had made films for Columbia Pictures, but they would only budget $300,000 to $400,000 as a favor to him, not nearly enough to shoot an action movie on an exotic location. When they turned to United Artists marketing and production chief David Picker, the producers were eager to move forward quickly. Their future depended on this deal, which is why they named their production company Eon, E-O-N, meaning everything or nothing. When UA agreed to make Dr. No on a tight budget of $1.1 million, the deal required Eon to cast Bond with an actor willing to do sequels. Well-known actors got more money than this budget would allow, and the better known the actor, the less likely he'd be to tie himself up for years making sequels and being typecast as 007. Back at their London offices, Broccoli sent Picker some possibilities, like Patrick McGoohan, who was popular at the time from starring in the British TV spy series Danger Man, and a promising young actor, Robert Shaw, who later wound up being cast as a villain Bond battles in 1963's From Russia with Love. Then Picker heard from Saltzman, who flew to New York with film footage and stills of a young Scottish actor, Sean Connery, who'd already been in a few American movies. Picker, in his wonderful 2013 memoir, Musts, Maybes, and Nevers, recalls asking Saltzman if Connery was the best he could find, and being told he's the richest man in the poorhouse. They didn't think Connery was perfect for the role, but he met their needs. UA agreed to Connery despite Fleming's opposition to casting the then unpolished Scotsman to play his elegant and quite British MI6 agent. "He's not what I envisioned of James Bond looks," Fleming explained. "I'm looking for Commander Bond and not an overgrown stuntman." But the novelist had second thoughts about Connery after the sensational world premiere of Dr. No at the London Pavilion October 5, 1962. So when Fleming wrote his 1964 novel, You Only Live Twice, he decided to make Connery's Scottish heritage part of Bond, giving him a father from the Scottish Highlands. And that's it for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with another box office autopsy next week. In Hollywood for Screendollars, I'm Martin Grove.